Back in April of 2013, I went through something I've never been able to talk about. I was paid a hefty sum to keep my mouth shut, signing a 10-year agreement to stay quiet. Now that the time's up, I've been mulling it over. I could just let it go, never speak of it again. I wouldn't gain anything by opening up, and I've got a lot to lose. But then again, this is just some anonymous post online. Words don't carry as much weight that way. It was in West Virginia, hotter than usual, without a hint of breeze. I was driving home from visiting my aunt. She'd broken her leg and couldn't leave the house. I was on I-64 out of Lewisburg, heading back. It started with the radio. It was playing that one Maroon 5 song I'd heard 100 times, but the sound kept cutting in and out with quick bursts of static, then vanished entirely. Up ahead, I could hear cars honking as traffic began to pile up. The trees started swaying, bending under growing pressure. A rush of wind slammed against the left side of my car, forcing me to yank the wheel the other way to stay on course. I shut the sunroof as a dust cloud rolled in, streaking the windshield. Then came a rumble like thunder, but it was coming from the ground, a deep groan growing louder and clearer by the second. At its peak, I saw trees toppling over. A little Kia lost control, swerving off the road as the noise faded. The highway dissolved into chaos. Some drivers swerved desperately between lanes, others slammed on their brakes. My door got scraped as the car behind me sped past. The radio crackled back to life with an automated message, a local emergency alert calling it a geological event. In a flat, robotic voice, it told us to turn off all air conditioning, slow down, and take the nearest exit. It repeated over and over, geological event, no air conditioning, slow down, divert to nearest exit. Minutes dragged on. Traffic clogged up further ahead, and police officers blocked the lanes in every direction, leaving only one highway exit open. Some people tried to shove past the barricades but got forced back at gunpoint. I saw a few officers wearing gas masks and riot shields. They waved us through, and I followed the exit, turning right as directed. It led to an open field turned into a makeshift parking lot. Cars were guided in and parked so tightly together there was no room to open our doors unless you were on the edge for rows, maybe 10 or 15 cars each. Extra vehicles were sent further down the road. The place was packed. I ended up in the second row, about 6 cars in. Pretty much everyone around me was on their phones. I didn't have anyone to call, but it seemed like signals were spotty anyway. The radio kept looping that same emergency message. Voices grew louder. A guy 2 cars to my left stuck his head out a cracked door, yelling at the officers for answers. They fired a warning shot straight up into the air and screamed, "Stay in your vehicle. Lock your doors." I'm not telling you again. A few people were filming, but uploading anything was a struggle. We were losing bandwidth fast. It didn't take long for phone signals to drop completely. I think a couple of videos of that shot in the air made it online before everything went dead. The officers patrolled back and forth, barking orders to keep windows up, doors closed and locked, engines off. I overheard people talking in their cars. Someone said it might be a natural gas leak from the geological event, that running our engines could spark an explosion. Others whispered about a terrorist attack. No one had answers, and the officers weren't in a chatting mood. After about an hour, things got tense. People were hungry, thirsty, restless. One officer climbed onto the hoods, handing out water bottles, crackers, and little slices of processed cheese. His steel-toed boots dented the cars as he stepped from one to the next. They also passed out thick black plastic hygiene bags for anyone who needed to go use it, seal it, crack your door to drop it out, then lock up and wait. I crawled into the back seat, pulled my cap down, and tried to relax. I'd been playing games on my phone, but the battery was dying, so I decided to save it and take a nap instead. Sweat stung my eyes, not just from the heat, but from how nervous I was. No matter what I did, I felt trapped. The car seemed to shrink around me. I couldn't get out even if I wanted to, and that thought physically hurt. Is that what claustrophobia feels like? A couple of officers were talking up near the front row. One wore a white cotton glove, wiping it across a car hood before peeling it off and sealing it in a bag with a heat gun. It hit me then. Our cars must have been covered in something. I wasn't the only one thinking it. Two college kids in the car to my left were debating it too. Anthrax, one said. Nah, gold dust, the other laughed. They just don't want to share. Man, I honest to God hope you're right. You're not, but I hope you are. Shit, you. I chimed in soon after, suggesting it could be something combustible, something that'd blow up if we started our engines. They nodded, willing to consider it. The car behind me couldn't hear us, but the driver held up a notebook that read, "If we don't know what it is, it's gotta be aliens." I couldn't tell if they were serious. They weren't laughing. There were others around me too, a man in his 50s with what looked like his daughter, a guy in a black shirt who seemed like a preacher without the collar, two middle-aged women with a kid in the back, a hefty guy blasting Johnny Cash from his radio, a couple with a teenage son who wouldn't stop drumming on the windows. We'd been stuck maybe 2.5 hours when a truck rolled in. One of those big water tank ones, unmarked, looked civilian. They called out over a megaphone, "We'll be hosing your vehicles down. Keep everything locked and closed. Then we'll cover them with protective plastic while we wait for it to dry. After that, we'll start letting you go in an orderly manner." I repeat, most of us felt a wave of relief. It was only a matter of time now. It was getting dark. They climbed onto our cars, hosing them down thoroughly. It smelled like chlorine. Maybe they'd mixed something into the water. When they got to my car, they stepped up, double-checked the sunroof was locked tight, and sprayed it down. The chemical stench hit hard, the kind that sticks in the back of your throat. It took them an hour or two to finish. Afterward, they rolled out a huge plastic cover, like the kind for pools or football fields during rain, from the short side of the lot. Two squad cars dragged it slowly over all of us, pinning the edges with big rocks. "Please stay calm," they shouted. "We know this is uncomfortable, but it's for your safety. Once the cleaning's done, you'll be free to go. Stay inside your vehicles at all times." I repeat, I did as told, watching that plastic sweep over me. It felt like being buried alive. All light vanished, leaving me in pitch black with only the muffled voices of others around me. The college kids were talking about where they'd head after this. Someone honked, not sure if it was support or frustration. Another person cheered. I took my last sip of water, swallowing my final plain cracker, and climbed back into the driver's seat. I could hear them finish securing the plastic and parking their squad cars. I waited, figuring it'd be another hour or so. They hadn't given us a clear timeline, but I could breathe a little easier, sort of. I went back and forth between feeling in control with my hands on the wheel and feeling like I was trapped in a metal coffin. It was so dark, and everything reeked of plastic and chemicals, like a car wash frozen in time. As the excitement died down, I tuned into the background noise, filtering out nearby conversations. Somewhere in the distance, I caught raised voices, not from the cars, but the officers. Whatever they were arguing about, it was heated. An hour passed, then more. People got impatient. More cars honked. Others yelled for answers. My leg wouldn't stop shaking. The more I thought about getting out, the smaller the car felt. I was fixating on things I couldn't control. I was thirsty with no water left. I needed to pee. I wanted to stretch my legs, walk around, breathe fresh air, get that awful chemical taste out of my mouth. I heard cars starting up, accelerating. The truck moved off to the side. "We need you to stay in your vehicles," a voice blared over the megaphone. "Do not leave for any reason. Stay in your vehicles." A few cars sped off, not many, just a couple, then silence. The officers left us there. Everyone went quiet. Some people flicked on their phones, using them as flashlights to peer from car to car. Under that dark cover, I saw a handful of lights cut off by sharp silhouettes, a sea of trapped, anonymous people. Then a gasp from the back. A metallic clunk, like when the officers climbed up to hand out water. A cautious cheer rose as some thought they were peeling off the plastic, but that wasn't it. Instead, more footsteps pattered across the cars. I stopped counting after a dozen. The silhouettes in the other cars froze. We all held our breath, waiting for something to explain itself. What the hell was happening? What was that sound? A voice to my right, an older man I'd seen in a pickup earlier, called out, "Who's up there?" Almost in reply, the footsteps stopped. A faint clicking sounded, like someone snapping their tongue against their palate. Click, click. Then a click answered from further away, to my left. More clicks followed, then a cascade of them. Dozens, maybe hundreds. A horrible metallic screech came from my right, then breaking glass. A scream cut off mid-breath, followed by erratic taps of a car horn. One of the distant silhouettes blurred as something smashed through a windshield, tearing the plastic cover. Up in the front row, a car roof was sliced open, and someone was yanked out of their seat. 2 cars back from me, more glass shattered. It sounded like a wild animal had gotten inside. I caught a faint glimpse, red splattered against the passenger side window. I couldn't breathe. My heart pounded through my chest, arms trembling. My hands cramped around the steering wheel, sweat dripping from my shoulders. I couldn't stop it. I didn't even see what was happening, but those sounds, those screams, stirred something primal. This was danger, a threat my body recognized before my mind did. The college kids next to me ducked down. One waved at me, signaling to get low. I nodded, scrambling into the back seat. In the dark, everything felt off. I couldn't tell where my hands or feet were landing. As I fumbled over, my foot accidentally tapped the horn. A quick blip, barely a second, but to me, it was deafening. I flattened myself on my stomach in the back, and within moments, something heavy climbed onto my hood. The car groaned under the weight, way heavier than the officer who'd handed out water. I clapped my hands over my mouth to muffle my panting, but it just turned into snorting sweat. My nose burned as I bit my tongue, listening to every creak and groan as whatever was out there shifted. When it reached my sunroof, there was a slight crack. It paused. Another crack. I shook my head silently, begging the car to hold. Then it gave. A glass showered my legs as a chunk of plastic cover sagged in. Something big tumbled into the front seat, still wrapped in plastic, twitching and spinning. Its clicking went from cautious to a frantic barrage. It was calling for help, alerting others, clawing through the plastic. Footsteps rushed from every direction, some leaping car to car, some bounding far enough to skip one. As they closed in, I'd be swarmed in seconds. I fumbled, slicing my thumb on broken glass, and managed to pop the passenger side door open. Even at its widest, pressed against the college kid's car, it wasn't enough to slip out, but I had to try. I squeezed into the gap, exhaling hard to flatten my chest. That thing thrashed in my car as black spots dotted my vision, my arms weakening. By some miracle, I made it, hitting the gravel face first, the sting of leftover chemicals burning my skin. I swallowed the urge to run, instead crawling under my car on my stomach. More of them arrived, some climbing on, some off. My chest pressed to the ground as the weight shifted. Glass broke from the windshield. Fabric tore. Something was up there, raging like a trapped beast. The college kids mumbled to each other, one calming the other. Stay low, stay quiet, just wait. Then something slammed into the passenger side door I'd crawled out of, shoving it against the next car. The door buckled and fell half off its hinges. An inky black, bird-like foot touched down beside me, 3 toes forward, one back, clawed, like a raptor's but bigger than a human foot, skin smooth and oil slick. It had to weigh at least 400 pounds. If that clicking came from its mouth, it was maybe 6'7" to 6'9" tall, could have been hunched. How it moved between the cars, I don't know, but it must have been thin. It stepped delicately from my car to the next, like it was scanning. A tap on the glass behind me startled someone, a short scream, and the hunt was on. This time, it triggered a chain reaction. The plastic cover ripped apart as people clawed out of their cars. I heard a windshield being kicked, a door slamming against the car next to it. Gunfire rang out in the distance, just a couple shots. The college kids slammed their doors open and rolled under their car like I had. With the cover torn, faint light trickled in. Their faces were red, tear-streaked. One tried calling for help on his phone. The other snatched it, wrestled briefly, then turned on a ringone and slid it left as far as he could. Whatever car it landed under got demolished, windows smashed, passengers gone. I heard grinding as a seat was torn out and tossed aside. A dozen of those things swarmed it in seconds, ripping it apart. "Shut up," one of the kids hissed, over and over. Something reached under my car, scraping my shoe, tearing a hole down to my toe. I scurried forward like a lizard. The kids saw and followed. I made it 2 cars down before I hit a dark shape blocking my path. Couldn't get around without exposing myself. Then a meaty crunch, like someone biting into flesh. It struggled through clothing, snapping threads. Warm blood pooled under the car, brushing my fingertips. One of those things was eating someone. I hunkered down, forcing myself to breathe, waiting for a chance. I stayed there at least an hour, hearing every bite, every crack of bone, every snap of sinew, satisfied clicks as it finished. It wandered off, dragging what was left. Something heavy stepped over my car, towing a body forward slowly, then faded away. In the quiet, I found my moment. I crawled to the edge of the plastic, listened one last time, shoved a weight aside, and slipped out. They were gone. I could breathe again. My chest lightened. I wanted to cry from relief. A breeze dried the sweat on my brow, carrying the scent of grass. Stepping back, I turned to see the damage, a sea of wrecked cars. Then I saw one, perched on an old Honda off to the side. At a glance, it looked like a tall person coated in slick black ink. But up close, you'd see the bird-like feet, pointed claws, a wide mouth with rows of shark-like teeth. I froze. It stretched to its full height, over 7 feet, and looked ready to lunge. I had nothing to fight with, couldn't move fast enough to dive back under a car. 100 thoughts raced through me, but I was out of options. Then it just stared. It raised a slab of raw meat, blood dripping onto the plastic, took a curious bite, and wandered off. Satisfied, I stood there, shaking like a leaf. With the last of them gone, panic set in. The officers came back, peeled off the plastic, but we couldn't go home, not after that. Some signed waivers and left right away, agreeing not to talk for a big insurance payout. Others demanded answers and got hauled off for obstruction of justice. A few were too freaked out to make sense and needed medical checks. 14 people died, blamed on a mix of a traffic pileup, carbon monoxide poisoning, an animal attack, even an escaped convict. The timelines were all jumbled, spread over days to blur into stats. If you wanted to go home with the money, you signed the non-disclosure. I did. The college kids did too. Damn miracle they made it. 34 cars got towed, 18 people injured, 6 bad, for lost limbs, 1 guy's arm torn off halfway up his shoulder. I don't know how he lived. Most never saw those things up close, just heard the screams and breaking glass. Sometimes at night, that's all I hear too. Closing my eyes takes me back under those cars, feeling the weight shift. I still struggle to breathe. Part of me still trapped there. Pop culture's a graveyard for words. Original meanings get lost when language is twisted creatively, yet destructively. It's only a problem when big words turn meaningless, like when illnesses become adjectives. Someone's a little OCD, depressed, bipolar, psychotic. That last word I threw around carelessly as a kid, but its real weight hit me hard when my grip on reality unraveled, when I came unbound. The onset of my psychosis was brutal, terrifying, confusing, lonely. Imaginary friends are cute at 8, but at 18, they're a red flag. I knew that, so I kept my loved ones in the dark about my sickness. They noticed my mood shifting, my mind slipping, but with my dad's recent death, they chalked it up to grief. The real roots stayed buried. I hid every symptom I could, making sure my real friends never met my imaginary ones, never knew about the all-knowing shadows trailing me. I was lucid enough to know they weren't real, lucid enough to know it wasn't healthy. First came Grant, then Shirley, then Albert. These 3 weren't always around, but one or more would usually be close by. It didn't take long to see they were stitched together from real people in my life. Grant was like my late dad, gentle but firm, grounded, trustworthy. Shirley echoed my late grandma, a bit dreamy but warm and wise, her sharp mind making up for her lack of practicality. Albert, though, was different. Saying he unsettled me doesn't cut it. I tried hard to shake the knot in my gut, telling myself he was just another patchwork of faces and voices that shaped me. I'd have told myself anything to loosen the lump in my throat, The one that rose every time Albert showed up, threatening to choke me. I'd convinced myself he'd vanish into some dark corner when he wasn't watching me. But deep down, I knew he never stopped. Earlier this year, the dam broke. After 6 years of bottling up a flood of emotions, I cracked. Losing my job was the trigger that forced me to come clean about the delusions I'd hidden since I was 18. I knew I couldn't keep it up forever. I told my mom, my girlfriend, my friends, spilled that I'd been seeing people who weren't there, that I'd buried the truth under a thin layer of antidepressants and forced smiles. That layer had worn through, just like I always knew it would. There was something freeing in letting it out. I felt like a kid again, finally processing everything that had haunted me since those late teenage years. It brought me closer to my mom. She was relieved to finally understand why I'd pulled away for so long. It wasn't just grief, and it sure as hell wasn't her. "I know you'd rather have April here right now," Mom said. I smiled, patting her hand. I'd brought her along to the doctor for emotional support, but she was there for herself too. She was scared for me, especially since I'd recently opened up about my suicidal thoughts. She didn't want to lose me like we lost Dad. Still, I'd reached out for help this time. That's what I reminded her, and myself, as we sat in the waiting room. "April tried her best to come," I said, "but I'm glad you're here, Mom. It's outrageous her work wouldn't give her the afternoon off. This is important." Mom huffed. "It's only a GP appointment," I replied. "Don't get worked up. You'll send your blood pressure through the roof." She nodded absently. "Will he prescribe antipsychotics?" "That's what he hinted at over the phone," I said. "This really isn't a big deal, Mom. I feel silly asking you to come. He said I'd have to do the actual consultation alone anyway. Nothing silly about it. Justin," she cut in with a gasp, "you and I should talk about everything, big or small, day or night." "I know, Mom," I said. "I will. I'm getting better at talking. Take a breath." "Sorry," she exhaled. "I don't mean to be overbearing." "You're not overbearing," I replied. "I'm lucky to have you. I'm the one who should be sorry. Sorry you have to suffer too." "Don't talk like that, Justin," she whispered, tears welling up. "We're here for you. You know that, don't you?" I frowned. It feels easier sometimes to bottle it up, not be a burden. My mind's quieter when I only worry about myself. She shook her head. "That's your illness talking. No matter what lies it tells, never face it alone. Your father was the same. It wants you weak and isolated. That's why it keeps you from the ones who love you." "Justin Woods?" A voice called from an open door past the waiting area. "That's me," I replied loudly, standing and turning to Mom. "I'll be waiting right here," she promised. "So will I," Grant whispered softly. I avoided looking at the gray-haired, middle-aged man in the plastic chair beside her, the man who wasn't there. I didn't want to upset her, so I beamed at her, hoping Grant wouldn't know if the smile was for both of them. Of course he knows, I thought. "He's in your head. Come on." A fragile voice beckoned, scratching my earlobe. "It's time again." I didn't need to turn to know it was Shirley, shuffling beside me. She always struggled to keep up, but never fell too far behind. Bound to me alone, my inner sage. A sour wave surged up my chest, stinging my throat. I wanted to say a real goodbye to my two dear friends before the meds wiped them from my mind, but I didn't want Dr. Rowland to notice. It wouldn't bother him, sure, but I was self-conscious about my illness, even in a place meant to heal. Mental stuff isn't like physical ailments. There's a taboo, a stigma that lingers no matter how much we pretend otherwise. That's why I hid it for years. That's why Albert showed up. "It's okay, Justin," Shirley assured me, resting a frail hand on my shoulder while waving the other at my brow. I smiled convincingly at Dr. Rowland. "We're up there, but I won't hear you anymore," I thought. "We guide you even when you don't hear us," Shirley said soothingly. "You're me. You're all those who came before, who shaped you. Don't worry about us, champ," Grant added, popping up on my other side. "You're allowed to let go. You're allowed to heal. I'm proud of you, pal." "He would be too," I nodded slightly but stopped when Dr. Roland frowned, clearly catching the turmoil in my blank stare. "Are you okay, Mr. Woods?" he asked. I cleared my throat. "Yeah, just a little nervous." He smiled, motioning me into his office. "Quite understandable, but I promise I'm here to help you through this. I'm not just scrib-parle writing a prescription. Over the coming weeks and months, as you adjust to the meds, I'll keep tabs on your progress." I nodded, sitting by his desk as he shut the door. "Any questions?" he asked, slumping into his chair. I paused. "Is it really as simple as getting a referral and hitting the pharmacy? Will pills make the noise stop?" Dr. Roland smiled again. "We're going to try olanzapine, Justin. The effects vary a bit person to person. Some see symptoms drop off in days. For others, it takes weeks. But like I said on the phone, I'll be with you every step. I always have been, haven't I?" I raised an eyebrow, and he laughed. "Really? You don't remember me? Glad I made such an impression. Your parents brought you here since you were a kid, Justin." "I know," I said. "It's not that. I remember you, Dr. Roland. It's just, those were for stomach bugs and scrapes. I never thought I'd see a doctor for something like this. For years, I've been pretending I haven't lost it." "That's not a kind way to talk about yourself," he warned, printing a prescription slip. "You're unwell, not crazy. You take antibiotics for an infection, just like you take antipsychotics for this little hiccup in your mind." "I guess," I said uncertainly, taking the paper. "Do I come back for refills?" He shook his head. "Use the patient access site. Order online, pick it up at the pharmacy. No need to see my annoying face every time." "That's it?" I asked. He nodded kindly. "That's it. But I'll call to set up a checkup in a few months, see how you're doing. If you get any side effects before then, let me know." "Side effects?" I gulped. "Possible with any med," he said. "But don't worry, Justin. We're just testing this out. If it doesn't work, we'll try something else." "Sound good." I mumbled agreement, standing shakily and slipping the paper into my coat pocket, jamming my hand in deep. I was scared to lose my golden ticket. "So, I won't see people anymore? People who aren't there? Olanzapine should reduce or wipe out symptoms," he replied, leading me to the door. "If it doesn't, tell me. Let's take it one day at a time. Everything's going to be okay, Justin." "So everyone keeps saying," I thought as I shuffled out the door he held open. In the hallway between his office and the waiting area, that familiar lump clogged my throat. I knew what I'd see before I turned right. At the far end, past the row of offices, stood a man, arms stiff at his sides, features blurry even up close. Albert. His clothes were forgettable. Maybe always the same, maybe different each time. I could never pin down his face, but I'd know it anywhere. Even a glimpse of his uneven eyes and lips froze me solid. No fear compared. He stood chained by invisible shackles to the clinic's tiles, his whole body trembling. His heaving chest screamed fury. Since my first call with Dr. Roland, he'd gone quiet, uncharacteristically so. His silence scared me more than his creepy ramblings. He lurked there, teetering on the edge of lunging, his eyes burning with something unspeakable. I didn't want to tempt him, so I hurried on. "Justin." Mom called. "How'd it go?" I strolled into the waiting area with a fake smile. Mom, Grant, and Shirley sat in red plastic chairs, on the verge of tears as I approached. "Come on," I said, helping Mom up. "Time to buy some drugs." "Justin," she tooted, grimacing. Those first 2 weeks were hellish yet liberating. Breaking free didn't bring instant joy. Dr. Roland warned it'd take time, but he didn't say how messy it'd be, how painful at times to hear Grant and Shirley's jumbled words as they drowned, clawing to be heard above the tide. "Thoughts don't die, Justin," Shirley choked. "We're part of you." By that next Friday, I hadn't seen them in days, my longest stretch without hallucinations in years. To celebrate, I planned dinner, with Mom and April at our favorite Chinese place. Just the three of us, no unseen guests for once. "You seem better today," Mom said before digging into a sticky rib. "You had a good day yesterday, didn't you?" April asked, smiling at me. Sorry, I don't mean to speak for you. You okay today, Justin? My publicist speaks the truth. I nodded dramatically. I'm happy and healthy. No further questions, please. She rolled her eyes. One frustrating side effect, though, bad jokes. Oh no, he's always told those, Mom said. Isn't this supposed to be a celebration, not a roast? I chuckled. It's both, Mom smiled. That's the Woods way. Your father would have had something funny to say right now, wouldn't he? I nodded, reaching across to hold her hand. Funnier than me. She wiped a tear. No, you were both hilariously unfunny. Dad would be, is, so proud of you, Justin. It's a cliché, but clichés exist for a reason. I'm just so happy you've improved so fast. Seeing you and April smiling at each other warms my heart. He's pretty lucky to have me, April grinned. I know you've been focused, Mom said, but you're right. You're the daughter I always wanted. After 20 years of disappointment with a measly son, I teased, you came along to save the day. Thanks, April. Justin, Mom groaned. I laughed, hopping up, just nipping to the bathroom. Gives you time to vent about me. It's not as fun without you here to take it, April said. Hardy har. I replied, pinching her shoulder as I headed off, restaurant chatter filling my ears that I barely noticed him. The nodding man alone at a booth in the corner. His laughter cut through the dining room roar, amused by some silent joke, tears streaming down his face. My eyes met his as he gestured to the chair across from him. Albert, the man I'd hoped never to see again. Chest tightening. I ignored him and darted into the bathroom, smile gone. I pretended I hadn't seen him, pretended I hadn't hallucinated in days. Gripping the sink, I took a minute to steady my breathing. I told myself the meds weren't a cure. My illness wouldn't vanish, just ease. But why? Of all three, did Albert have to come back? Anyone else? Please, I thought, sweat soaking my skin. Then came labored breathing from the locked stall behind me. My shaky eyes flicked to the mirror, catching movement through the crack between the door and wall. A bloodshot eye peering out. Don't scream, Albert whispered, pressing a finger to his lips as my mouth opened. You won't like what happens if you scream. He wagged his finger through the gap, urging me closer. I wanted to bolt, but there was no running from him. Nodding, I stepped to the stall, mouth quivering. I've missed you, he panted. I eyed his uneven teeth through the sliver, felt his rotting breath wash over my cheeks. My body shrank in terror as his wormy fingers stretched toward my face. I've been better lately, I croaked. Better? Albert's grin widened. You were better before. They'll only burden you. Want me to make them go away? I'm going back to the table, I whispered hoarsely. I don't want to talk to you anymore, Albert. You're not real. Is that what Dr. Roland told you? He giggled, showing a haunting slice of his face. I'm very real, Justin. Very, 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 very real. I'm leaving, I stammered, backing away. You're no fun. He sulked, eyes pressing the gap to track me. It's just you and me, Justin. Always will be. I'll help you. I'll free you. Jaw locked in a silent gasp, I scurried out. He wasn't at the corner table anymore. I prayed he'd stay in that stall forever. You okay, dear? Mom asked, frowning at my pale face as I returned. Yeah, I muttered, faking a smile. It's just been an overwhelming couple weeks. April took my hand, smiling. You're doing so well, Justin. I'm proud of you. I nodded weakly, but I wasn't there for the rest of the meal. My eyes kept darting to the men's room, squinting for Albert in the grimy shadows. He wasn't there, and that didn't comfort me. The next night, I shook off that primal fear, telling myself I'd let a small slip rattle me too much. To distract myself, I invited friends over, April, Michael, and Jane. I told them about Albert. They were amazing, so supportive. I felt dumb and reminded myself I was stronger when I opened up, not isolated, despite Albert's lies. I'm starving, Michael said. Shall I hit Domino's? Yes. Jane squealed. 2 margarita pizzas, please, April said. Thanks, mate, I added as they headed out. Silence settled in the lounge. Then April turned with a sly grin. And then there were two, she whispered, bouncing her brows. Hoping for a quick Monopoly game, I teased, nodding at the board game stack. She rolled her eyes, grabbed my hand, and smirked. Yes, let's play Monopoly upstairs. We weren't quick. I'll leave it at that. Shit, April gasped after, eyeing the bedside clock. It's 8 o'clock. I frowned, pulling on clothes. Already? What time did they leave? 7. No messages from them in the chat, she said. Shouldn't take an hour. Domino's is just around the corner. They okay? Must be playing Monopoly, I grinned. She snorted, shaking her head as she dressed, but my smile faded as my eyes drifted to the bedroom window. In the dark garden, lit faintly by solar lights, Albert stood under an oak tree, watching. I tried to hide my horror, but April noticed and followed my gaze. I expected her to soothe me, say I should call Dr. Roland about the meds failing. Not, who's that? My blood ran cold at those two unthinkable words. I told myself I'd misheard, but her frown said otherwise. Justin, do you know that man out there? She asked. That's your property, right? I trembled. You can see him? Her face grew more scared. Yeah, I see him, Justin. Should we call the police or tell him to leave? Do not go out there, I warned, grabbing her shoulders. We're staying in this room, okay? She shivered. Do you know him? You're scaring me, Justin. Let's just call the police. He'll just be some random unwell guy. He's not dangerous. Please tell me he's not dangerous. We both looked away from the window. When I turned back, Albert was gone. I don't understand, I whimpered. He's gone, April said, glancing out, then back at me. He was real, Justin. I saw him. Let's call the police. Whoever he is, you don't understand. I cut in coldly. What don't I understand? She asked, shaking. You're not helping me feel better about this, Justin. Please, just let me call. The front door clicked open, silencing us both, freezing us in place. Michael, April yelled. Don't, I begged, pressing a finger to her lips. It's not them. It's what, Justin? What? She cried. You won't believe me, I said, tiptoeing to the bedroom door and cracking it open. Through the gap, I saw the stairs. The front door swayed in the growing wind. There's nobody at the door, I whispered, dread rising. Right, I'm doing it, April said, pulling out her phone. Before she could dial, a creak came from behind us. Our eyes snapped to the in-suit bathroom, shapes lunged from the dark into the bedroom's glow. Long, slithering fingers curled around the door, pushing it open. April and I didn't breathe, whether from fear or his silent command. A face emerged, squeezing through, no longer vague but horribly clear. Albert's skin writhed with moving wrinkles, his eyes deep black pits, blinking too fast. As he reached for April, I screamed and yanked her back, not just for her, but because she screamed too. She saw him. He'd always been real, not a man, but something else, breaking nature's rules. I feared I'd never tell truth from delusion again. We bolted downstairs, the house shaking under some massive weight. At the front door, I caught Albert's reflection in the window pane. He'd swollen to a monstrous size, filling the upstairs landing, hunching as he chased us. Stepping onto the lawn, I turned slowly, but he hadn't followed. He was gone. I savored the breeze on my skin, joining April in crying for help. Sirens drowned us out. Neither of us had called, but the reason showed itself. Down the street, Michael's car was smashed into a tree. No drinking, no swerving, witnesses saw nothing. I knew what did it. Who panicked my friends into that wreck? Without a word, April and I agreed not to speak of it. We rushed to the paramedics and firefighters, but their grim faces told the story. Hours later, I thought of Albert's threat, thought of Mom. When we got to her flat, it was trashed, and she was gone. Months later, she's still missing. The terror never fades. Not knowing what she suffered, or suffers, cuts deeper than seeing my friends' twisted bodies in that wreckage. I don't know if I'll see her again, or if I'd want to, knowing what Albert might have done. April and I haven't stopped running. I still feel him trailing us, though I know now he's not just in my head. Albert wants me alone. That's how he thrives, feeding on my isolation. I should leave April. If I give him what Milan he wants, it might save her. But even if I do, he could still hunt her, twist her into something unthinkable. If I stay, she has a shot. We both do. I cling to what Mom said. No matter the lies it tells, never face it alone. First off, let me set the scene. I'm a truck driver. Been doing it for about 5 years now, mostly hauling freight across state lines. It's not glamorous work, but it pays the bills, and honestly, I kind of like the solitude. Long stretches of highway with nothing but my thoughts, some shitty country music on the radio, and the occasional gas station coffee to keep me awake. Sounds peaceful, right? Well, most nights are. But last night was different. It started normal enough. I picked up a load in Omaha around noon, a shipment of industrial parts bound for Denver, and hit the road. Easy route, familiar roads, nothing crazy. By 9 p.m., I was cruising down I-80 through Nebraska, somewhere between Grand Island and North Platte. The weather was clear, the traffic was light, and I had just enough caffeine in my system to stay sharp without getting jittery. Everything felt fine. Routine. Then my GPS went haywire. Now, I've got this older Garmin unit mounted on my dash. It's reliable, usually. Sure, it doesn't always have the latest updates, but it's never steered me wrong. Until last night. Around 10:30, I noticed it glitching. The map flickered, the estimated arrival time jumped around randomly, and then suddenly, it rerouted me. Without warning, the voice came on. In 2 miles, turn left onto County Road 47. I frowned. CR 47? That wasn't part of the plan. I double-checked my route. According to the paper map I keep tucked under the seat. Old school, I know. I should have stayed on I-80 for another 100 miles. But hey, maybe there was construction ahead or an accident diverting traffic. Shit happens. So, against my better judgment, I decided to follow the GPS worst-case scenario. I'd lose a little time and end up back on the interstate eventually. Big mistake. The exit ramp led me off the highway and onto a narrow two-lane road surrounded by endless fields of corn. Nothing unusual about that. Nebraska's full of them. But as I drove deeper into the countryside, things started feeling off. For one, there were no other cars. None. Not even a single pair of headlights in my rearview mirror. Normally, even in the middle of nowhere, you'll see someone passing through. Trucks, farmers heading home, whatever. But here, dead quiet. And then there were the lights, or lack thereof. Every so often, I'd pass a farmhouse or barn, but none of them had any exterior lighting. No porch lights, no security floodlights, nothing. Just dark shapes looming against the starless sky. It was eerie as hell, especially since the moon had disappeared behind thick clouds, leaving everything bathed in shadow. About 10 minutes in, the road narrowed even further, turning into what looked like a dirt path more than an actual road. My tires kicked up dust, and the cab shook with every bump and pothole. Still, the GPS insisted I was going the right way. Continue straight for 3 miles. It chirped cheerfully, like it didn't notice we were basically driving through the wilderness now. 3 miles of this. I muttered to myself, gripping the wheel tighter. What the fuck am I doing? But I kept going. What else could I do? Turn back? In the pitch black, retracing my steps sounded almost worse than pressing forward. Besides, I told myself, it'll spit me out somewhere sooner or later. Right? Wrong. After what felt like forever, I finally saw something up ahead, a cluster of buildings silhouetted against the horizon. At first glance, they looked abandoned. Broken windows, sagging roofs, paint peeling off the walls. The whole place gave off serious Chernobyl vibes. But the GPS announced, "You have reached your destination," as if this godforsaken ghost town was exactly where I was supposed to be. I pulled over and killed the engine, staring at the scene in front of me. There were 6 structures total. A crumbling brick building that might have been a schoolhouse once, a rusted-out water tower, a couple of smaller shacks, and what appeared to be an old church. The church stood apart from the others, its steeple tilting slightly to one side like it was leaning closer to inspect me. A chill ran down my spine, though whether it was fear or the sudden drop in temperature, I couldn't tell. Against my better judgment, I grabbed my flashlight and stepped out of the truck. The air smelled weird, like damp earth mixed with something metallic. It made my nose itch. As I walked toward the nearest building, I realized the ground beneath my boots wasn't dirt. It was ash, fine gray powder that crunched softly with each step. Weird, considering there weren't any signs of fire damage anywhere. I peeked inside the schoolhouse first. The interior was trashed, desks overturned, chalkboards cracked, papers scattered everywhere. But it was the silence that really got to me. You'd expect critters or birds nesting in a place like this, but there was nothing. Not a single sound except the creak of the floorboards under my weight. Creepy as fuck. Next, I checked one of the shacks. Same deal, empty, decrepit, lifeless. But when I opened the door to the third structure, I froze. Inside, arranged neatly in rows, were dozens of metal cages. Human-sized cages. They looked clean, almost new, which was bizarre given the state of everything else. Some still had locks dangling from their doors, shiny and untouched. My stomach churned. Who the hell needs cages like that in the middle of nowhere? By now, my nerves were shot. I wanted to leave, to hop back in my truck and speed away as fast as possible. But before I could move, I heard it. A low hum, faint at first, like distant machinery, but growing louder by the second. It seemed to come from the direction of the church. Against every instinct screaming at me to run, I found myself walking toward it instead. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was stupidity. Either way, I regretted it instantly. The church doors hung open, creaking softly in the breeze. The smell hit me first, sharp, chemical, like bleach mixed with burnt plastic. It burned my nostrils and made my eyes water. I hesitated, shining my flashlight inside. The beam revealed pews covered in white sheets, statues draped in cloth, and a massive cross hanging above the altar. Nothing too strange, except the floor. It wasn't tiled or wooden like you'd expect. Instead, it was smooth, glossy black, like polished obsidian. And it reflected the light in a way that made my skin crawl. It wasn't natural. Nothing about this place was natural. As I moved closer, the humming grew deafening, vibrating in my chest like a bass note turned up too high. Then I saw the cracks. Thin, spiderweb-like fractures spreading across the surface of the floor. Steam hissed from the gaps, carrying that same acrid stench. Suddenly, the ground shifted beneath me, not shaking, exactly, but pulsing, like it was alive. That's when I noticed the symbols etched into the walls. Strange, angular patterns that glowed faintly red. They reminded me of circuit boards or alien writing, jagged and incomprehensible. My flashlight flickered, casting distorted shadows that danced unnaturally along the ceiling. Panic bubbled up in my throat. I turned to bolt, but the doors slammed shut behind me. Not loudly, not dramatically, just quietly, like someone gently closing them. Except I was alone, completely alone, or so I thought. From the corner of my eye, I caught movement near the altar. Something small and pale darted across the reflection in the floor. I spun around, heart hammering, but there was nothing there, just empty space. Then the voice came. It wasn't human. It wasn't anything I'd ever heard before. A deep, guttural growl that seemed to resonate directly in my skull. Words formed, though they didn't make sense. Gibberish syllables strung together in a language older than time itself. Whatever it was, it knew I was there. It knew I didn't belong. I ran. I don't remember unlocking the doors or stumbling outside. I just remember sprinting back to my truck, fumbling with the keys, and tearing out of that nightmare as fast as the engine would let me. The GPS remained silent the entire way, refusing to acknowledge where I'd been or guide me back to civilization. Eventually, I found my way back to I-80, shaking and drenched in sweat.